The great poet Maya Angelou said, living the Christian life in social isolation, disconnected from others, is a contradiction in terms. And she wrote a wonderful poem called Alone. And here's how it goes. Lying, thinking last night, how to find my soul a home, where water is not thirsty and bread loaf is not stone. I came up with one thing, and I don't believe I'm wrong, that nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone. Nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Anybody ever lived in Syracuse, New York? They have a lot of snow there in the winter. I've heard it's very heavy snowfall. I was doing some research last night on intentional communities. I don't know if you've heard that term yet. Intentional communities. In Syracuse, they have a wonderful one called Common Space, and they have actually hundreds of them in the United States and worldwide. And it's really like a co-housing community. It's their community in Syracuse is made up of 25 mini apartments, and each apartment has their own kitchenette and bath. But then they all have access to a larger shared chef's kitchen, a library, a game room, a coffee lounge, and a media room. There are 27 residents there, and couples are welcome, and they all live together. But only sort of. In private apartments that are, once you step outside your door, are unprivate. And they're part of a growing trend in an increasingly lonely country, intentional communities. Intentional communities, a couple dozen apartments or single-family homes built around central squares or common spaces. And they're operated in ways intended to keep the community connected, be it through weekly dinners, at a common sharing area, shared babysitting services, gardens together, games, or even vacations together. Now, if you don't want to participate, I know there's some of us that we don't want to get into all that stuff with people. We like our alone time. That's fine. No one will come and pester you to play a game you don't want to play, or join a committee that you don't want to join. But when you need the community, because you're sick, or your spouse is away, or a baby is sick, or you're just plain lonely and would like some companionship, it's there for you. Social connections are important for all of us, and we have evolved as a human species to depend on them, a former U.S. Surgeon General said. Over thousands of years, this has gotten baked into our nervous systems, our DNA, so much so that if we are feeling socially disconnected, that places us in a physiological stress state. Now, over 40% of American adults suffer from loneliness, and I guarantee you there's a bunch of us in this room today. You know what my loneliest time is on Sunday afternoons? Don't ask me why. I guess because of all the community, and then when I'm going home on Sunday afternoons, I always feel this letdown crying. But people who suffer from loneliness, that condition is as dangerous to you and to your physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases your risk of a cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and more. And loneliness is a condition that makes no demographic distinctions. It affects the millennials who are just starting their careers. It affects the baby boomers who are just ending theirs, the empty nesters, the new divorcees, the first-year college students 1,000 miles away from family and high school friends. The list goes on and on. Now, social media, Facebook, Twitter, and all those things, seems to draw people closer together as we create virtual connections with others. But in fact, researchers said these virtual connections have little of the benefits of an actual connectedness. And I will tell you, I miss sitting down with people and playing a game, a board game, or a card game, or just talking or watching a movie together. Intentional communities are about creating attachment, the feeling that someone has your back. So who would you call in the middle of the night if you were really sick or scared? Intentional communities can help you have an answer to that question, and faith communities can also. Now, intentional communities are very different from a commune. If you remember back in the 60s or 70s. Communes, it was a community of people sharing common interests, sharing their resources, pooling all of their resources together. They have kind of a consensus decision making, and they're based either around common goals or views. A lot of ones that are environmentally friendly are still doing communes. Religious and spiritual communes are still existing. But they do have their own set of problems. But if you're a commune dweller, go for it. When we read our story today in the book of Acts, the idea of living in community both attracts us, but also repels us. We probably all long for the life-affirming benefits that community can bring to us, but we resist the demands that community can make on us. So we find it kind of difficult when we read this story in Acts about how those early followers gathered together, all peaceful, all sharing everything, holding hands, singing kumbaya, hugging one another, and all that great stuff. It sounds great and wonderful, but on the other hand, living near people, sharing everything, well, it can bring on its own problems. Now, Luke writes that the believers lived in a wonderful harmony. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? Living in a wonderful harmony, holding everything in common. And they sold whatever they owned and pooled their resources so that each person's needs were met. You don't want to get into a cult now. We have some cults, so they'll tell you to sell everything and give it to them. There's examples of that all over. But Luke goes on to write in Acts how Barnabas sold his land and gave the proceeds to the community. And a few pages later, Luke also writes about how they provided financial assistance for widows, including complaints about how the program was administered. And a few pages after that, we read about a famine relief effort. Now, a couple generations after Luke wrote, writing from Rome, the theologian Justin Martyr summarized the appeal of a Christian community. We who once took most pleasure in accumulating wealth and property now share with everyone in need. We who hated and killed one another and would not associate with people of different tribes because of their different customs, now, since the coming of Christ, live with them and pray for our enemies. In Africa, Tertullian wrote about well-known and well-deserved reputation of believers for their social generosity that built bridges of community rather than walls of separation. Down through the centuries, faith believers and Christians have found many different and creative ways to live lives of social generosity and to create caring communities of faith. The description of the life lived together in those days following the resurrection of Jesus are a visible sign of the reign of God among us, something we all yearn for. Now, it's important to acknowledge that Acts, taken as a whole, does not hold up this depiction of corporate life as central or primary in the church experience, so we don't all have to live together and share everything. It may represent the best of what God's people are capable of in the power of the Spirit. But if you read further in Acts, you'll hear about the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who defrauded the Jerusalem community. Anybody remember that story? So it does have its problem. But Acts, I think, shows us a picture of the flawed nature of believers and their struggles to achieve and maintain unity among themselves. So we can draw from this story a description of what a faith community can look like, what we want it to look like. And maybe we see this passage as a reminder of what the Holy Spirit can do in the life and work of a Christian community, so that perhaps this faith community can reflect, even if only dimly, the reign of God that Jesus proclaimed while on earth and secured through his death and his resurrection. Acts describes a community of faith that operates in the power of God's Holy Spirit. The values of justice and worship and everyone is equal are not accomplishments of extraordinary people. The early church was filled with people who are all flawed, just like all churches are today. They are signs of the Spirit within a community of people who understand themselves as united in purpose and identity, and not just a bunch of people who individually come to church and don't get connected with one another. We are called as members of a faith community, of this faith community, to be united in our purpose and our identity, to respect one another, to be kind to one another, to show compassion, to be unified. We don't all have to believe the same thing, but to have a unity, a spirit among us, to work for social justice. And whether we like it or not, we need one another. We might not want to admit it, but we need one another. Members of a community of faith live in a way that displays God's love and reconciliation for all people. And faith communities feed our spirits and allow us to live out our faith actively. At the beginning of summer, you were invited to go on vacation or staycation, your own backyard, wherever, and gather an amount of water so that we can combine them together in our common goal. It's a way to symbolize how our many streams combine together to meet and merge. It's the mingling of our waters and the mingling of our lives together as a faith community. And our mingling of the water is a visible sign that no matter where you go or for how long, no matter how far away, the love of this community and the love from this community will always draw us back in, warm and welcoming. So as you come forward today, I'm going to invite you to either share, if you want to, you don't have to, and if you didn't bring water, we have water here that the ushers will give to you. If you would like to share briefly where your water came from, or perhaps we'll do something a little different this year, consider what it is that you would like to bring to this faith community. What will you share from your heart and your spirit in the coming year? You might be coming to worship maybe two Sundays out of the month when possible. Maybe you've got a musical talent you want to share. Maybe you have a gift that you know you've been hiding and you're ready to share it now with us. Maybe you promise to pray for people more. So I'm going to invite, Lucy's going to sing a wonderful song for us to kind of get us centered and focused. And then I'm going to go down and pour some water in a bowl, and then we'll invite you to come forward.